U.S. military strikes Venezuela. A major escalation in American-Venezuelan tensions. Washington orders military action inside Venezuela. On the early morning of January 3, 2026, the United States launched military strikes on Venezuelan territory, marking an unprecedented escalation in tensions between the two nations. According to U.S. officials cited by CBS News, President Donald J. Trump ordered strikes on sites inside Venezuela, including key military facilities in the capital city of Caracas. Explosions were heard across Caracas and surrounding regions in the states of Miranda, Aragua, and La Guaira, and U.S. commercial flights were banned from Venezuelan airspace by the FAA due to ongoing military activity. Targets and strategic objectives. The strikes, conducted in the early hours at roughly 2 a.m. local time, reportedly hit Fuerte Tiuna, the main military base in Caracas, the La Carlota Air Base, a military signal antenna known as El Volcan, and the La Guaira port, an important Caribbean seaport. U.S. officials told CBS News that President Trump had approved the plan days prior, with military planners considering multiple windows for the operation around late December before settling on the date early this month. Maduro's reported capture and U.S. claims. In a breakthrough claim, President Trump posted on social media that Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife were captured and flown out of the country during the operation. Trump said the action was a large-scale strike carried out with the involvement of U.S. forces and law enforcement, and that Maduro was to be taken to the U.S. to face charges. CBS News also reported that Delta Force, an elite U.S. Special Operations unit, was involved in Maduro's capture, a rare and direct intervention by U.S. ground forces. Venezuelan authorities have demanded proof of life for Maduro and his wife and expressed confusion and concern over the conflicting reports of their whereabouts. Venezuelan government's response. The Venezuelan government condemned the strikes as very serious military aggression and accused the U.S. of seeking to force a regime change. Caracas said civilian and military sites were attacked, and the government has called for national mobilization and international action, including a meeting of the United Nations Security Council. In reaction to the strikes, Venezuela also declared a national state of emergency and began deploying its armed forces across the country. Background: months of escalation. This sudden escalation did not occur in isolation. Over the past several months, the U.S. military has significantly increased its presence in the Caribbean Sea and near Venezuelan waters, including deploying the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier and other warships. President Trump's administration has also carried out dozens of strikes on boats it claims were carrying drugs, part of a broader campaign against what the U.S. labels narco-terrorism and criminal gangs allegedly connected with the Venezuelan state. Earlier strikes have already provoked controversy, with critics questioning their legality due to a lack of congressional authorization and the absence of clear evidence that vessels struck were transporting narcotics. The U.S. also recently seized Venezuelan oil tankers and imposed a naval blockade on sanctioned tankers entering or leaving the country, escalating economic pressure on the Maduro government. International and domestic reactions. The strikes have drawn international attention and varied reactions. U.S. lawmakers have expressed deep divisions. Some Republicans and Democrats have criticized the strikes as unconstitutional without a formal declaration of war by Congress. Neighboring nations, including Colombia's president, reported explosions and called for global attention to what they described as attacks on sovereign territory. Allies like Cuba and Iran condemned the strikes, while some leaders in the region voiced support or concern over the unfolding crisis. What it means going forward? The strikes represent perhaps the most dramatic U.S. military action involving a Latin American government in decades. Venezuela's leadership remains uncertain, with conflicting accounts of Maduro's status, and the country's defense forces have been mobilized in response to what they term an imperialist attack. The coming hours and days are likely to determine whether this conflict escalates further, triggers wider geopolitical repercussions, or results in diplomatic negotiations under intense world scrutiny.
Please like, share, and subscribe for more news.